From a small-town childhood to the halls of power. For more than 3 decades, he stood at the center of America's biggest political battles. He was praised by supporters, criticized by opponents, and often found himself at the heart of the nation's most important debates. Some called him one of Washington's most influential senators. Others saw him as one of its most controversial. Then, on July 11, 2026, America woke up to shocking news. Senator Lindsey Graham had died unexpectedly at the age of 71. The announcement immediately sparked questions. How did one of the most recognizable figures in American politics rise from a small-town childhood to become one of the most powerful voices in the U.S. Senate? Tonight, we're looking beyond political headlines to explore the life, career, and legacy of Lindsey Graham. A childhood marked by responsibility, long before television cameras, campaign rallies, or Senate speeches. Lindsey Olin Graham was born on July 9, 1955, in Central, South Carolina. His parents owned a small restaurant and bar called the Sanitary Cafe. The business wasn't glamorous. It demanded long hours. Everyone in the family worked, including young Lindsey. From an early age, he learned discipline, hard work, and responsibility. Customers came and went every day. Many knew the Graham family personally. It was a close-knit community where reputation mattered. Those early years would shape the values that stayed with him throughout his life. But when Lindsey was still a teenager, everything changed. Within just 15 months, he lost both of his parents. And overnight, his future became uncertain. A life-changing tragedy. When Lindsey was 21, his mother died after battling lymphoma. Just over a year later, his father also passed away following a heart attack. The losses came at one of the most important moments of his life. Suddenly, he found himself responsible for helping raise his younger sister, Darlene. Friends later recalled how the experience forced him to mature quickly. Instead of focusing only on his own future, he became determined to provide stability for his family. Those difficult years profoundly influenced his outlook on duty and public service. Many who knew him believe those experiences helped shape the resilience that would later define his political career. Education and military service. Despite personal hardship, Lindsey Graham continued pursuing higher education. He graduated from the University of South Carolina, earning a degree in psychology before completing law school. After becoming an attorney, he joined the United States Air Force as a lawyer in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, commonly known as the JAG. Military service became one of the defining experiences of his life. Although he wasn't serving as a combat pilot or infantry officer, he worked on military legal matters involving justice, discipline, and national defense. Over the years, he continued serving in the Air Force Reserve and Air National Guard, eventually retiring with the rank of colonel. Throughout his political career, he frequently pointed to his military background as one of the reasons national security remained among his highest priorities. Military service introduced Lindsey Graham to another world, politics, and before long, he realized his next battlefield wouldn't be overseas. It would be Washington, D.C. The first steps into politics. During the 1990s, South Carolina politics was changing. Lindsey Graham entered the South Carolina House of Representatives, where he quickly developed a reputation as someone willing to engage in detailed policy debates. He wasn't known for fiery speeches. Instead, he focused on legal issues, government reform, and conservative policy. His analytical style attracted attention within the Republican Party. Soon, a larger opportunity emerged. In 1994, he successfully ran for the United States House of Representatives. At just 39 years old, he was heading to Washington. Washington beckons. Serving in the House of Representatives introduced Graham to national politics. He built relationships across party lines, worked on defense issues, and earned recognition for his knowledge of military affairs. Unlike some politicians who preferred television appearances, Graham became known for committee work, behind-the-scenes negotiations, and detailed policy discussions. His legal background often proved valuable during complex legislative debates. Colleagues from both parties described him as well-prepared and deeply engaged with national security issues. That expertise would soon place him in the center of one of the most dramatic political moments in modern American history. Then came 1998, a year that would introduce Lindsey Graham to millions of Americans and forever change the trajectory of his political career. The Clinton impeachment. In 1998, President Bill Clinton faced impeachment proceedings related to the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Lindsey Graham served as one of the House managers responsible for presenting the impeachment case before the United States Senate. The proceedings received worldwide attention. For many Americans, it was their first introduction to Graham. He argued that the impeachment process was about constitutional responsibility rather than political popularity. Supporters praised his legal reasoning. Critics disagreed with his conclusions. Regardless of political opinion, the nationally televised proceedings made Lindsey Graham a recognizable figure across the country. His calm, lawyer-like style distinguished him from many other politicians, and it significantly raised his national profile. The United States Senate. In 2002, South Carolina voters elected Lindsey Graham to the United States Senate. It marked the beginning of a Senate career that would last more than 2 decades. In the Senate, he became especially active on issues involving national defense, military affairs, judicial nominations, immigration, foreign policy, counterterrorism. His committee assignments allowed him to influence legislation affecting both domestic and international issues. As years passed, he became one of the Republican Party's most recognizable senators, not because he always agreed with fellow Republicans, but because he often spoke independently, sometimes even challenging members of his own party. One relationship, however, would define much of Lindsey Graham's political identity. It was a friendship built on military service, shared values, and decades of mutual respect. His friendship with Senator John McCain. The McCain years. Lindsey Graham and John McCain became one of the best-known partnerships in the United States Senate. Both had strong interests in national security. Both believed America should maintain an active role in international affairs. Together, they traveled extensively, met with foreign leaders, visited military personnel overseas, and advocated for a robust American foreign policy. The two senators often appeared together during interviews and congressional hearings. Their friendship extended beyond politics. McCain frequently referred to Graham as one of his closest allies in Washington. For years, the pair became almost inseparable in the public eye. Their influence reached Republican administrations as well as Democratic ones. A reputation for independence. Throughout the early 2000s and into the next decade, Graham developed a reputation for occasionally breaking with his own party. He supported bipartisan efforts on immigration reform, worked with Democratic senators on certain judicial and national security issues, and sometimes criticized Republican leaders when he believed they were mistaken. That independence earned him both admiration and criticism. Supporters viewed him as pragmatic. Opponents accused him of inconsistency. Either way, few doubted his willingness to speak openly. That characteristic would soon place him on a collision course with one of the most influential political figures in modern American history. In 2015, a businessman named Donald Trump announced his campaign for president of the United States. At first, Lindsey Graham became one of Trump's sharpest Republican critics. Their public exchanges quickly made national headlines. Few people could have predicted what would happen next, because over the following years, the relationship between Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump would transform in ways that reshaped American politics. The alliance that changed everything. In politics, few relationships have surprised Americans more than this one. Just months after publicly criticizing Donald Trump, Lindsey Graham would become one of his closest allies. It was a political transformation that sparked endless debate. Supporters called it strategic leadership. Critics called it a complete reversal. But regardless of opinion, that partnership would define the next chapter of Lindsey Graham's career. The Trump years begin. When Donald Trump announced his presidential campaign in 2015, Lindsey Graham wasn't supportive. In interviews, Graham questioned Trump's temperament and suitability for the presidency. The criticism wasn't subtle. It quickly became national news. Trump responded with his own criticism. The two exchanged sharp public remarks, and many political observers believed the relationship was beyond repair. But politics often changes faster than anyone expects. Following the 2016 election, Graham gradually began working more closely with President Trump on several key policy issues. Their relationship evolved from public disagreement to regular communication. For many Americans, it became one of the most talked about political shifts of the decade. But this wasn't simply about personalities. Behind the scenes, Some of the biggest decisions in American foreign policy were beginning to take shape, and Lindsey Graham was often at the center of those conversations. A powerful voice on foreign policy. Throughout his Senate career, Lindsey Graham remained one of Congress's strongest advocates for an active American role in world affairs. He consistently argued that national security should remain a top priority, whether discussing NATO, the Middle East, Russia, China, or military spending. Graham frequently appeared on television explaining his views. He served on influential Senate committees dealing with defense, intelligence, and the judiciary. Presidents from both political parties sought input from lawmakers with deep experience in national security. Graham became one of those voices. Supporters praised his consistency on defense issues. Critics argued that some of his foreign policy positions favored greater military involvement overseas. Regardless of perspective, few questioned his influence. Judicial appointments. Another defining chapter of Graham's Senate career involved the federal judiciary. As chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, he oversaw several high-profile confirmation hearings. These hearings attracted nationwide attention. Supporters viewed his leadership as helping shape the future of the American legal system. Opponents challenged some of his procedural decisions. The confirmation of Supreme Court justices became some of the most watched political events in the country. Millions of Americans followed every hearing, every vote, every statement. Graham's role placed him squarely in the national spotlight. Then came one of the most difficult periods in modern American history: a global pandemic, political unrest, and one of the most divisive elections the country had ever seen. Navigating a divided America. The years between 2020 and 2024 tested nearly every American institution. COVID-19 changed daily life. Political tensions reached historic levels. The 2020 presidential election sparked intense public debate. Like many senators, Lindsey Graham faced difficult decisions during this period. He defended many of President Trump's policies while also participating in congressional debates surrounding election procedures, judicial matters, and national security. Supporters believed he was standing by his political principles. Critics believed he had become too closely aligned with the president. Those differing perspectives reflected the broader divisions across country, Ukraine, and global security. Following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Graham became one of the Senate's most outspoken supporters of American assistance to Ukraine. He visited the country multiple times during the conflict, met with Ukrainian leaders, spoke publicly about continued military and humanitarian support. His statements frequently made international headlines. Supporters praised his commitment to helping Ukraine defend itself. Others questioned the scale and duration of American involvement. The debate continued throughout his final years in office. Yet Graham remained consistent in arguing that global security required strong alliances and sustained American leadership. Even after decades in Washington, Lindsey Graham showed no signs of slowing down. But behind the scenes, time was running out in ways no one could have predicted. The final months. By 2026, Lindsey Graham had become one of the longest-serving Republican senators in Washington. His calendar remained full. Committee meetings, media interviews, constituent events, foreign policy discussions. Despite decades in public life, he continued speaking frequently about issues ranging from defense spending to international diplomacy. Friends described him as energetic and deeply engaged in Senate business. There were no public indications that anything was seriously wrong, which made the news that followed even more shocking. A sudden medical emergency. In early July 2026, Senator Graham experienced a sudden medical emergency. According to official reports, he became seriously ill and was taken for emergency medical care. Despite efforts by healthcare professionals, he died on July 11, 2026, just 2 days after celebrating his 71st birthday. The announcement stunned Washington. Members of both political parties expressed surprise at how quickly events had unfolded. In the hours following his death, speculation spread rapidly online. Rumors circulated across social media platforms. Some questioned the circumstances. Others promoted unverified claims. But within days, medical investigators released their findings, and the official explanation directly addressed many of the rumors circulating online. The official findings. According to the medical examiner, Lindsey Graham died from an acute aortic dissection, a a sudden tear in the wall of the body's main artery. The report concluded that the condition was associated with underlying arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Officials stated that there was no evidence of foul play. As the official findings became public, many of the online conspiracy theories surrounding his death were rejected by investigators. The focus gradually shifted away from speculation and toward remembering a public servant whose career had spanned more than 3 decades. Within hours of the announcement, tributes began arriving from across the political spectrum. Republicans, Democrats, foreign leaders, military veterans, political rivals. Many who had disagreed with Lindsey Graham on policy still acknowledged his dedication to public service. But perhaps the biggest question remained unanswered. How will history remember Lindsey Graham? Will he be remembered as a military lawyer, a conservative senator, a foreign policy expert, a controversial political strategist, or something else entirely? A legacy that will be debated for generations. Very few politicians leave office with everyone agreeing about their legacy. Lindsey Graham wasn't one of them. To some, he was one of America's strongest voices on national security. To others, he represented the changing face of modern Republican politics. But one thing was undeniable. For more than 30 years, he remained one of the most influential figures in Washington. And after his death, the debate over his legacy only grew louder. Washington reacts. Within hours of the announcement of Lindsey Graham's passing, messages of condolences began arriving from across the United States. Republican leaders praised his decades of public service. Democratic lawmakers who had often opposed him politically still expressed sympathy for his family and acknowledged his long commitment to the Senate. Flags were lowered in South Carolina. Former colleagues shared personal stories from years spent working beside him. Many described him as someone who believed deeply in public service. Others remembered his quick wit, his long hours on Capitol Hill, and his willingness to engage in difficult conversations, even with political opponents. For a brief moment, politics took a back seat. The focus shifted from party differences to remembering a man who had devoted most of his adult life to government. But beyond Washington, millions of Americans were asking a different question. Who was Lindsey Graham when the cameras weren't rolling? The private man behind the public figure. Despite spending decades in the national spotlight, Lindsey Graham remained one of Washington's more private public figures. He never married. He had no children. Instead, politics became his life's work. Friends often described him as loyal, disciplined, and deeply committed to the people closest to him. Those who knew him personally frequently spoke about his sense of humor. Away from television cameras, he was known for telling stories, sharing jokes, and maintaining friendships that crossed political lines. Even lawmakers who strongly disagreed with his policies often acknowledged that private conversations with Graham were respectful and thoughtful. It was a reminder that politics on television rarely tells the whole story. Supporters' perspective. For many conservatives, Lindsey Graham represented consistency on issues of national defense. Throughout his Senate career, he argued that America should maintain strong alliances around the world. He supported increased military readiness. He frequently advocated for veterans and active duty service members. Supporters also pointed to his decades of service in the Air Force Reserve and Air National Guard as evidence of his commitment to the country. Many believed he brought valuable military experience into legislative decision-making. They viewed him as someone willing to make difficult decisions, even when they were politically unpopular. But no political career lasting more than 30 years is without controversy, and Lindsey Graham's was no exception. Criticism and controversy. Throughout his time in office, Lindsey Graham faced criticism from across the political spectrum. Some conservatives believed he occasionally compromised too much. Others argued he changed his positions over time to adapt to shifting political realities. Many liberals criticized his stance on judicial appointments, immigration, and foreign policy. His evolving relationship with Donald Trump became one of the most discussed aspects of his career. Supporters saw that relationship as practical leadership during a changing political era. Critics viewed it as inconsistent with his earlier public statements. Political analysts will likely continue debating those decisions for years to come, and that debate reflects something broader. In American democracy, public figures are often remembered through many different lenses. A lasting impact on American politics. Regardless of where people stood politically, Few denied Lindsey Graham's influence. Over more than 2 decades in the Senate, he helped shape conversations about national security, military policy, judicial confirmations, foreign affairs, immigration, congressional oversight. He participated in some of the most significant legislative debates of the 21st century, from impeachment proceedings to Supreme Court confirmations to international conflicts. His voice remained a constant presence, whether people agreed with him or not. He was rarely absent from the nation's biggest political moments. Yet perhaps Lindsey Graham's greatest contribution wasn't a single speech or a single vote. It was something much larger: the importance of public service. Political careers are often measured by elections won, bills passed, or headlines made. But history also remembers those who dedicate their lives to serving in public office. For more than 30 years, Lindsey Graham chose public service. He spent countless hours in committee meetings, national security briefings, constituent events, late-night Senate debates, international diplomatic visits. It was a career built on the belief that government matters, that elected officials have a responsibility to participate in difficult decisions. Whether history judges those decisions favorably or critically will depend on future generations. But his commitment to public service remains part of his story, a legacy that will continue to be debated. Some political figures are remembered with near-universal agreement. Others remain subjects of discussion long after they're gone. Lindsey Graham will almost certainly belong to the second group. Historians, political scientists, journalists, and citizens will continue examining his career, his alliance with John McCain, his relationship with Donald Trump, his role in shaping judicial appointments, his influence on American foreign policy. Each chapter tells part of a much larger story, and together, they illustrate how one senator became one of the defining political figures of his generation. Years from now, students studying American politics may come across Lindsey Graham's name in history books. Some will focus on his legal career, others on his Senate service, some on his foreign policy views, others on the political controversies that surrounded him. But all of them will recognize one undeniable fact. For more than 3 decades, Lindsey Graham helped shape the national conversation. Years from now, students studying American politics may come across Lindsey Graham's name in history books. Some will focus on his legal career, others on his Senate service, some on his foreign policy views, others on the political controversies that surrounded him. But all of them will recognize one undeniable fact. For more than 3 decades, Lindsey Graham helped shape the national conversation. Final thoughts. Whether you admired Lindsey Graham's policies, questioned his decisions, or simply followed American politics from afar, his impact on the United States Senate is impossible to ignore. His journey, from a small-town restaurant in South Carolina to one of the most recognizable voices in Washington, is a story of resilience, ambition, and decades of public service. His career reflected both the opportunities and the challenges of modern American politics. And while opinions about his legacy may differ, his place in the history of the U.S. Senate is secure. Thank you for watching this documentary. If you enjoy balanced, fact-based documentaries about influential political leaders, world events, and remarkable real-life stories, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. What do you think Lindsey Graham's greatest political legacy will be? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. Civil discussion helps us better understand history from different perspectives.